Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, nabiyana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wa jazakumullahu khairan, respected parents, brothers and sisters in Islam. Okay, just my laptop's gone dead. Just give me one second and I'll bring that back up. So, the purpose of this session is very much parent focused and adult focused. So just to reiterate, if there are any children in the call, children listening, it's not really appropriate for them, not because we're going to talk about anything particularly controversial, but because the advice is very parent focused and it wouldn't be appropriate for children to be part of that conversation. Okay. And it's very much about empowering parents to support their children through the secondary school journey. Now, that journey starts with year 7. So I think the people who will find this session most useful are parents who are starting secondary school for the first time. But everything we cover will be just as relevant to parents who are already in the secondary school phase. It's not particularly suitable, this session, for parents in year 12, 13, where their concerns will be more around university applications, perhaps ISOCs, Islamic societies, activism in university. That's a completely different topic. And at some point, we may wrestle with those topics as well. But we've got our hands full at the moment with the secondary phase. That is the phase that our youth hub is geared towards. And that's the phase which we feel we can add most value to. But at a later stage, we may look into A-levels, university life, university applications, etc. Okay, so what I'm going to present to you, I want you to kind of absorb what I'm saying and not to focus so much on recording and note-taking, because I have quite an extensive PDF which I'm going to present from. Apologies, it's not in a PowerPoint form yet. Inshallah ta'ala, it will be. So you're going to see me, as you did see me, scrolling up and down a little bit. Just do apologize for that. It will be forwarded to you all. So there's you'll have plenty of reading to do. So at the moment, I think just focus more on the discussion element and asking questions. Now, although I'll have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end, please do feel free to interrupt and ask if there's any burning issues you've got, immediate clarification you need, but any kind of extensive questions, scenarios, specific scenarios, that would be more suited until the end. Okay. Can I check if relevant? Absolutely relevant to year 6 students, because you're going to be making the transition next year to year 7. So absolutely relevant. First of all, let's talk about very briefly the understanding the importance of moving from primary to secondary school. In primary school, you're dealing with a very small community. As parents, you will have that kind of community feel to your schooling. You'd be used to coming into school, perhaps even going into the playground, speaking daily to the staff, getting daily updates on what's happening with your children. You may be used to for any concern, being able to have that addressed on the day. You'll be used to seeing your teachers, the head teacher, deputy head teachers. Your child would have one teacher, maximum 2 or 3, but mainly one teacher who nurtures them and develops them through the year, or at least through Key Stage 2. Now, things are very, very different in secondary school. And failing to come to terms with that changing culture can lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, and basically the relationship becoming the relationship with the school deteriorating. So secondary schools are much larger. Secondary schools, typically a child could have up to 12 or 13 teachers. Secondary schools feel like a fortress. So, movement for parents is highly restricted. It can be very difficult to get appointments in secondary schools due to the sheer size of students. Although in recent years there's been a move for academies to have smaller and smaller cohorts, the reality is that some community schools, they can be absolutely huge, ranging from 1,500 students up to 2,500 students. So the culture change can be bewildering for parents, especially if parents English is a second language. They don't really understand systems. They don't understand some of the jargon involved. It can be very daunting. But I'm here to reassure you that it's nothing to be afraid of, and you will be able to have an active engagement in your children's schooling, and you will have avenues by which you can have any concerns addressed, and it should be a kind of happy experience, something that is not too particularly daunting. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about the school journey itself. So I do apologize for this scrolling that I'm going to be doing. It's not aesthetically very nice, I know, but I can reassure you, content is king. There's a lot of useful information here, and you will have a copy of this provided for you. Now, I'd like to start off by thanking the organization which has produced this detailed guide. They took input from a number of people in education. It's Educare, which is a charity that tries to empower parents with supporting their children in school. And it's very important, that's the first place that we start. That education isn't supposed to be about making money, okay? It's become a massive money maker from all angles, from tuition centers that are raking it in to academies which are, a kind of arm of the corporate world, to the list is endless. It's supposed to be a community initiative. It's not supposed to be about the wealthiest having, the biggest advantage. It's not supposed to be about you having an advantage via sending your children to private schools, even if it's Islamic schools. It's not supposed to be about that. Education is supposed to be the great leveler, which allows opportunities for all and allows people to excel according to merit, not according to money. So we need to bring it back to the basics again. So organizations like Educare, which are trying to provide free training and free resources to parents, and of course the Al-Noor Parent Hub, which organizes free online sessions for parents throughout the year. We do at least 6 sessions per year on different subjects for parents. This is the way that education is supposed to be. And we live in a neoliberal society, a highly kind of corporate society. We have a kind of consumer mentality, and the idea is a competition where the one who pays the most will be able to get most advantage for their children. We need to break that cycle. We need to again see education as a right for all, and something that is based on merit, not money. Okay, so let's understand briefly the school journey. Secondary school journey. It starts off in year 7 there in the bottom corner. Okay, that's when you start secondary school. Year 8 and year 9 is supposed to be what's called key stage. Year 7, 8, and 9 is supposed to be what key stage is called key stage 3. And in that phase, you're supposed to get a broad and balanced curriculum. So it's not supposed to be that children have their curriculum narrowed down in years 7, 8, and 9. It's not supposed to be a question of, okay, the school says we're worried about your child not passing in maths and English. We're going to focus all on maths and English. We're going to cancel PE. We're going to cancel this. We're going to cancel that. It's supposed to be about your child enjoying learning, trying out different subjects which they haven't tried before, getting a broad and balanced diet. So the first thing to just keep an eye out for is the narrowing of the curriculum, and children being kind of forced at an early age to just heavily over focus on maths and English, or maths and English and science, and having the kind of enrichment opportunities taken away from them. Okay. In year 10, 11, it's supposed to be GCSEs, where you knuckle down. And then year 12 and 13 are A levels, which then leads on to either university, apprenticeships, or work. Okay. And obviously, apprenticeships, they can also be started in year 12. Okay. So we're very much focused on that kind of year 7 to 11 journey. Now, I've discussed about the kind of cultural change which occurs when you move from primary to secondary school. Now, the next major key area I want to speak about is people simply don't understand how, or parents often don't appreciate how big the cultural change is for students themselves. Okay, going from that small supportive community in primary to this ocean, which is secondary school, which seems quite a harsh environment. And there can be an assumption that the child should be able to move seamlessly. It's not. They need support, they need to be helped, and you can't just make assumptions. If they have been spoon fed all throughout primary school, which is not a good idea, then you can't just expect them to become independent in secondary school. Okay, that has to be built into them, it has to be trained with them, it has to be developed with them. They're now going to be responsible for their own deadlines for homework. They're now going to be responsible for managing quite a complex timetable. Yeah, most schools have a 2-week timetable where there's a week A and a week B, or a week 1 and a week 2, where the subjects are different in week 1 and in week 2. So it's not like the same Monday. Not the first Monday is not the same as the second Monday. The first Tuesday is not the same as the second Tuesday. Due to timetabling constraints, most schools have a 2-week timetable. So the cycle repeats itself every 2 weeks. So there's higher levels of organization needed. Now, from my experience in secondary school, what differentiates the highest achieving students from others, first of all, is motivation. Okay, when students find themselves in a really positive friendship group, people who are aiming high, and when students are able to position themselves in those friendship groups and also have high levels of motivation, that's the first factor which determines their outcomes. And the second factor is their organizational skills. Sometimes it literally just boils down to organization skills. Okay, it's nothing to do with the intelligence. Okay, it's nothing to do with how grateful they are for the opportunities they have. It boils down to which students are more organized than the other. Try and imagine that most secondary schools will have up to 10 or 11 subjects at GCSE. Very, very different subjects, okay, from artistic subjects, humanities-based subjects, science and maths-based subjects, performing arts subjects. And whoever knows how to organize themselves properly when it comes to homework, when it comes to equipment, when it comes to knowing deadlines, when it comes to preparing for assessments, those are the students that excel. So the very first thing you need to think about as a parent is, how do I get my child to be more organized? Okay, how do I gradually increase their level of autonomy, their level of self-management? Okay, if you're the type of parent, I don't want to be stereotypical here, but usually is the mothers who are spoon feeding their child every step of the way. Everything from their breakfast to their clothes to packing their bags, you're spoon feeding them every step of the way. And you're thinking by doing this, you're actually helping the child and giving them a competitive advantage. What you're actually doing is clipping their wings. Okay, there has to be structured development of autonomy in the child. And the very first thing is they need to pack their own bags. Okay, they need to pack their own bags. Even some research has put down one of the major factors why girls outperform boys at GCSEs. Number one is writing. Okay, they tend to be much better writers, even though boys tend to be better at examinations, especially in maths and physics. But one of the main reasons is that girls tend to be more organized And that starts from parents expecting them to pack their own bags. Okay. But boys, parents just become despondent, pack their bags for them, do stuff for them. And as a result, they don't quite develop the organizational skills. So the first thing I'm going to say to you as parents, practice, it's supposed to be practical, right? Make sure your child gets in the habit of packing their bag the night before. It's their responsibility. Okay. Now it's going to create havoc for you. If they don't do it right, you get phone calls from the parents, they're in detention. You get phone calls from the school, they're in detention. It's going to make your life difficult. You're going to feel embarrassed, but you have to bite the bullet early in secondary school. They have to learn. The school will issue a timetable. The school will issue them with a planner. That planner will have the subjects, the timetable in it, and they have to learn to look at it the night before and to pack their bags. Equipment they need for the next day, exercise books they need for the next day, textbooks they need for the next day. And they have to become organized in terms of letting you know as parents about stuff that you need to do. So buying ingredients for them. No point telling you as a parent at 11 o'clock in the night that I need this many eggs, this much flour, this much sugar and whatever else is, pasta and, 100 grams of mince. And no point telling you that at 11 p.m. Okay. And you shouldn't be the type of parent who jumps out into their car, going to the 24-hour supermarket to satisfy their every whim and need. You're going to have to bite the bullet. You're going to have to be firm and say, look, you need to be more organized. Okay. So if you're going to get in detention, you're just going to get in detention. Okay. So packing their bags and learning the night before to look at their planners, to look at their timetable, and from a very early age, learning those skills. Okay. And parents, and especially mothers who spoon feed them every step of the way, it's more a need that comes from you. It's not a need for them. Okay. It's more insecurity in the parent and that idea of cherishing your child's self. Okay. When you spoil your children that way, what you're actually doing is spoiling an extension of yourself. Okay. And pouring affection on a version of yourself which you see on your children. So let's be some tough love here. Yeah. Okay. Let's get them organized and let's get them working hard. I'm just going to tell you something that really affected me. It's a bit, anybody who knows me, I do go off on tangents. But we were in a weekend retreat with some secondary school boys. We were just trying to, build some character. And I remember standing in the kitchen watching a boy. He came, there was cereal and there was milk. And he said, and this was breakfast. And he goes, what do we do? And I said, you can just choose whatever cereal you want and just grab some breakfast. So he looked at me confused, and I looked at him even more confused than why he's so confused. And then I watched him take a bowl, a spoon, a cereal box, and milk, and then think about it for a while, not sure what to do. And then he thought about it, and while standing, he poured milk into his cereal bowl first until the bowl was full of milk. Then he took the cereal box and poured the cereal on top of that, and the whole thing went everywhere. And I just looked at him, got quite angry. I said, why are you playing games like that? What's so funny about doing that? And he said, I don't know. I've never poured cereal for myself. It's his mother who every morning pours his cereal into a bowl. Okay. So how can we blame the young man that he's not developing any self-management strategies, not any independence? Okay. So let's try and kind of take a more holistic understanding of parenting, that we need to develop resilience in them. We need to develop independence. We need to develop organizational skills. At some point, these young men and these young women are going to be running their own households long time after we've gone, running their own families, and things that we often took for granted. We just assumed that everyone can do that as we were growing up. A lot of young people can't do these basic things because they've never been given the opportunity to do those things. Okay, so that's the first kind of major area I'm going to speak about. If anybody wants to shout and say, I disagree completely, then I'm not made of glass. You can disagree with me, but I'm just giving you my experience without trying to make any real moral judgments here. Okay, second big thing is routine. Okay, routine, which is highly linked to organizational skills. That school can be so hectic. It can be so hectic. There is no comparison of the pressure that young people are under now compared to when most of us were young. Okay, I say us as if we're all the same age, yeah, but just imagining what age you guys are. Okay, there's no comparison. The cognitive load, the pressure on the mind of a young person, the different priorities, different subjects, expectations of doing well. Then you've got the madrasa, you've got hifz of Quran, you've got sports, you've got now a media industry which promotes MMA fighters, Premier League footballers. Everyone wants to be everything. Yeah, everyone wants to be good at everything. Everyone wants to be a YouTube star. Everyone wants to be a social media influencer as well. There's so much pressure, so much priorities competing for attention. The only way to get through this is to build routine. Okay. Like I mentioned, organizing your bag the night before and building in solid blocks into their day. Okay. Starting with the salah. Okay. The salah is what regulates the day. So the first thing you should be thinking about the school day is Fajr prayer. Okay. What time do they need to sleep the night before to make sure they wake up for Fajr? And whether they're going to get some sleep after Fajr, and how will that routine be managed. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but those who are talk about sleep cycles. So there is a kind of cycle in which you go from light sleep into deep sleep, then back into light sleep. If you can work out your cycle, which is roughly every 3 hours, you will know the optimum time to wake up at. So what I'm basically trying to say is that if you have a sleep cycle and you're getting a certain number of hours of sleep where you're waking up in your deep sleep period, you're going to wake up very, very tired. If you had woken up a bit earlier in your light sleep cycle, then you'd be a lot more fresh. So kind of helping your child work out what their cycle is in terms of, usually it's about 3 hour cycles. So you can then work out, okay, what's an optimum time for them to sleep. But I don't want you to get too hung up on that, because sometimes you've got homework, you've got priorities, relatives around, friends around. You can't always manage it exactly. But start off with the salah, reading Quran. What time slot, what routine slot have they for Quran? Ghusl on Friday, the morning and evening adhkar. This dhikr, these acts of ibadah build and regulate the day. Now, as a side point, as another tangent, the children who do hifz and do it successfully, I'm not talking about the children who are beaten into submission, but the children who do hifz and do it well, they often are the most academically successful as well. I'm not going to use the word academically gifted, because gifted suggests it's just, it just comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something that can be developed as well. Obviously, it's tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's something that can be developed. And the children who do hifz, because of this routine, because of this resilience, because of this kind of hard work and discipline mentality, and because of the high levels of development of the long-term memory, they tend to be excellent at academic studies as well. Sometimes the pattern is not as strong in the UK. I'm not 100% sure fully of the reason for that, but certainly in Muslim countries, it's very, very normal to find the Hafiz of Quran is also academically the strongest. Okay, which brings me on to my next point: managing cognitive load of students. They've got a lot on their mind. Okay, what routine does is it automates aspects of their life that they don't need to think about, which then frees up their mind for things that they do need to think about. So what routine will help you do is to free up the working memory. Every person, they have a working memory and they have a long-term memory. The working memory is the kind of prefrontal cortex kind of immediate decision making, capacity of the mind, and that has a very limited capacity. It's like the RAM of a computer. Yeah, when you fire it up, you log on. It'll retain some information. When you log off, it'll wipe it clean. Okay. The long-term memory is like the hard drive of the computer. It's where things are stored and solid. Okay. Now, if you overload the working memory, the child will quickly reach capacity. That's why in Hifz of Quran, you will often find children who can memorize quickly and also forget quickly. Okay, because they have constantly been overloading their working memory. They haven't done murajaha, they haven't done revision, and that information has not been transferred to the long-term memory. How do you transfer to the long-term memory? Through repetition, through practice. Okay, so at the end of the school day, children having a quick flick through their work at regular intervals. So maybe the same day checking it, at the end of the week checking it, and once a half term for assessments and tests, checking it, and going through that cycle is just like Hifz of Quran, just like Hifz of Quran. That when you check your work, your content, your maths, your science, your English, and you're doing it at regular intervals instead of last-minute revision all at once, then you're transferring information from your working memory to your long-term memory, and you're freeing up your working memory to deal with important new ideas. So when you're in lesson, you're absorbing stuff. When you're in Islamic studies, you're absorbing stuff. When you're in Quran class, you're absorbing new hifz. Because all of the other things have already been transferred to your long-term memory, and because routine has taken out the decision making from the children. So it's not a question of what should I do today after school? What should I do? Should I do this? Should I watch TV? Should I scroll online? No, I've got a routine. I come home at this time. I have a break for this much, half an hour. I then do Quran from this time to this time. The routine, it takes away the decision making from the working memory. It frees up their mind. So now they can focus on the important things as opposed to focusing on futile, frivolous things. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, I wanted to just skip forward again. Forgive my scrolling. Okay, what's the school hierarchy like? Yeah, it can be quite bewildering for parents to understand how does school actually work. There's so many people, so much jargon. It's important to understand the school hierarchy simply just to get an understanding of the organization. It is quite a unique beast. It's not like a private company. Okay, there is a community element. There is a kind of public sector element. It's a kind of hybrid of everything. So right at the top of the school is the governing body and the chair of governors. Okay, now we need far more people from the Muslim community to join governing boards. Okay, as Muslims, we tend to be short-term kind of minded. We don't want to contribute to the community. We tend to focus on single issues. If we don't get what we want, we would get easily frustrated. Joining a governing body is a long-term process. It's about giving back to the community, and it's about having your say with the school. But it's a process which takes a lot of time to kind of ground yourself in, just like any organization. So the governing body sits at the top, and the chair of governors is ultimately responsible. Now, the head teacher reports to the governing body. So the head teacher is kind of like your CEO of the school. Yeah, they manage the day-to-day running of the school, but there is somebody who sits above the head teacher, which is the governing body and the chair of governors. Now, under the head teacher, the second most senior person will typically be the deputy head teacher. That is a more senior position than the assistant head teacher. So a deputy head teacher, the assistant head teacher will often come under the deputy head teacher. Now, a person who kind of sits separately is called SENCO. There's a D, SENDCO, Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Coordinator. They will typically be reporting directly to the head teacher or perhaps the deputy head teacher. So that will be the SENCO will be a very important person if your child is registered with special educational needs. Now, as another side tangent, it can be extremely daunting, the process of having your child registered for special educational needs. I'm the last person in the world to advocate over diagnosis and over medication. If your child has a genuine medical issue, learning need, then as parents, you need to go through that process, the form filling, the referrals from GP to get them registered, because it does lead to extra support and extra money being provided to the school to support your child. It's becoming more and more difficult with the crisis in education. As another tangent, there is a crisis in education, which is a funding crisis. A number of schools simply do not have enough money to make ends meet, from simple things like energy bills to maintenance work, building costs, and staffing costs. The more experienced and skilled your teachers are, the higher their wages, the older they are, the higher the pension bill. So many schools are actually running at a deficit, unable to meet the needs of the school, and as a result, that's going to have a knock-on effect on your children. Now, under this kind of green section here, this is called the senior management or the leadership team. Okay, so they are effectively the decision makers in the school. Okay. It's important to realize that, because if you want to get something done in the school, it's not going to happen unless there is engagement and support from that tier of management, which is known as the senior management or the leadership team. Okay. Now, under them, you'll find a blue route and an orange route. Okay. The blue route is the curriculum route, which are the curriculum managers. So any concern you've got regarding subjects, maths, English, science, art, history, geography, any concerns you have regarding homework, concerns regarding test results, they would go through that blue route, which is the curriculum route. Now, any concerns you have regarding to the well-being of your child, happiness, settling in, friendship issues, bullying, that would go down the orange route, which is called the pastoral route. Okay, so those are a couple of educational jargon you need to get used to. Pastoral is always to do with the well-being, bullying issues, settling in issues, behavior and discipline issues. The blue route is usually the curriculum route, which is to do with really academic outcomes. Okay, so the person you're probably most used to dealing with is the head of year or the pastoral leader. They'll be the most kind of frequent in touch with them, with you as parents, and they will lead a team of form tutors. That will be the person who sees your child every day, who takes the register, who does activities with them either in the morning or the afternoon. So from your child's perspective, their kind of first port of call will be the form tutor. But from a parent perspective, most likely you'll be in contact with the head of year or the pastoral leader. Now, if the concern is academic, then it will be the individual head of department who will be in contact with you, and by which you can kind of manage communication. Which brings me on to my next point, communication. Okay. There's no easy way of saying this can be a nightmare with secondary schools. Okay, can be a nightmare. Primary schools, it tended to be so easy. You're collecting your children, you're seeing teachers at the gate. You can have loads of informal conversations and develop a real kind of positive relationship with the teachers. Secondary schools feel a lot more colder, a lot more formal. Okay, so it's important you have you know what the means of communication with your school are, what the protocols are. They should have emails published. They should have contact numbers, and schools should be good at getting back to parents. Another simple way is simply to write a note in the child's planner. Okay, they'll be given a planner by the school, and there'll be a section for parents to write messages. Now, it's not always meant to be this way or designed this way, but often these messages just get lost, depending on how efficient the school is, how well thought out its communication strategy is. Sometimes those notes in the planners don't get checked by the form tutor. Sometimes emails don't get forwarded by the receptionist. And sometimes there's such a convoluted answering machine in the school phone that your messages go nowhere. So I've seen schools which are excellent, which will respond always within 24, 48 hours. And I've seen schools which never respond and never acknowledge, uh, and you feel you're not getting anywhere. As a last resort, if you're not getting anywhere with communication, nobody's responding, you've tried everything. Every school is obligated to publish their complaints policy on their website, and as a last resort, you can use that to say, look, I've tried to contact you, and I'm not getting any joy. And usually then almost definitely somebody will get back to you. Okay, but you don't want to take that consumer attitude into schools. Okay, teachers are very busy, they're trying their best, they're giving everything for students. Sometimes messages just get lost because of poor management and a poor communication strategy. So try to avoid that kind of formal complaint route. Try and build positive relationships first. And if really nothing works out for you, then go down that formal route. Okay. Yep. Respecting teachers. Yeah, our religion places a great emphasis on respect of elders, respect of teachers. There's famous Arabic poetry about teachers being like prophets, and or rather prophets being one of their roles being teachers. So we always have to be polite, we always have to be respectful. You do see parents behaving quite obnoxiously with schools, especially when it comes to parking issues, parking outside schools on keep clear signs. You need to understand that this kind of obnoxious behavior is not from our religion. And I know sometimes you might feel, parents, that teachers are not being particularly professional. But it's important to maintain your dignity as a Muslim and as a parent. Okay, don't take that kind of consumer attitude into schools. That if just like if I'm in a shop and I shout loud enough, I'll get what I want. Manager listens to me. Don't take that approach to schools, because it doesn't work in the long term. You end up just like a mark against you as a parent and perhaps even your child. Okay, so behave in a respectful way, but if you've got no choice, then obviously follow formal routes such as the complaints route. Okay, I'm conscious of time, and I really want to ensure that I do justice to people's um, questions as well. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit detail about year 7 and some of the subjects, some issues with subjects that you may come across. Let's start off with English. Okay, English, or particularly reading, is the key to the secondary school curriculum. Okay, children with a wide vocabulary who read very well and widely, they far outperform students with poor vocabulary, obviously. Yeah, so you need to promote a culture of reading. Yeah, and it's something which is often lost from our culture, Muslim culture, and rather than lost, it was taken away from us. Yeah, if you go back to the library of Baghdad, which was sacked by the and set on fire by the Mongol invasion, in the Middle Ages. We're not talking about millions of books. We're talking about millions of sections of the library, of chapters in our Islamic libraries. It was classically the norm for every family to have their own large library. We need to promote culture. We need to promote reading. Okay, reading Islamically, yeah, in terms of Islamic classical books. Also, reading in terms of English literature. I am not a person who advocates highly for censorship of books. Okay, yeah, some books definitely, smutty books, books which are effectively pornography, Mills and Boon, that kind of nonsense, which is just hardcore pornography in print. Okay, obviously that's totally inappropriate. But having a wide range of reading, whether that be adventure, fantasy adventure, history, politics, developing that broad range of reading is quite important, and developing that broad vocabulary. So doom scrolling on social media doesn't help. Okay. Sometimes radio can help develop that, Radio 4. In the current crisis, I don't advocate any attention to the BBC, but Radio 4, high level vocabulary, broadsheet newspapers, understanding what standard English is. That is very important and the key to the curriculum. Remember, every exam they do ultimately will boil down to a scanned piece of paper that will be marked by an examiner. And the very first kind of bridge of communication will be written communication, yeah, which will be on that exam paper. Then we've got maths and computing, yeah. Science, which is obviously, particularly South Asian parents, well, all Muslim parents, science is huge because of dentistry and medicine. But, okay, I would be a high, although, I'm a maths teacher, hands up, I also did English, literature, and history, and I regret not putting more effort into humanities. If you're going to do maths and sciences, you're going to end up being a worker, yeah, a doctor, a dentist. What we need is more thinkers. What we need is more humanities. What we need actually, more leaders. Yeah. So do not undermine the humanities. Yeah. Encourage it. If they have a passion for it, excellent. If they have a passion for history, excellent. If they have passion for RE, excellent. Okay. Don't undermine it, and don't get involved in these kind of comparisons. Okay. Your cousin, this became a doctor and all of that stuff. Practical subjects, design and technology, art and design, music. Obviously, music, brings up some issues in terms of some religion, in terms of religion, in terms of permissibility of playing musical instruments. Now, if you have a good relationship with the school, you can work these issues out. But I don't want to give any kind of blanket advice, because I don't think that would be appropriate. If schools are very, very different in how they approach it. And PE, okay? We have an obesity crisis, diabetes issues, young children with even up to type 2 diabetes. Type 1 obviously is different, but encourage sports, encourage PE, take it seriously, okay? And as parents, give credibility to that. Also, what's not, should be here is performing arts, yeah, drama really builds confidence, yeah. Don't undermine those kind of subjects, because they're part of the holistic education of the child. And, I've found personally that in current times, especially with Palestine activism, some of the most active members of the community are those from a performing arts background. Yeah, people involved in cinematography, drama. They have been the most active and some of the most effective. So don't undermine these subjects. It's important they have a broad and balanced curriculum. Okay, big issue here, which is relationship, sex, and health education. I would also recommend here that for detailed advice, you have the Muslim Family Initiative, which does a lot of training courses in this area. So all secondary schools have to teach relationship, sex, and health education. You have the right to withdraw from the sex education element, but not the religious education element. So they are distinctly different. One thing I would say is that sometimes parents put too much emphasis on this element of the curriculum. So I've come across, some young girls ran away from home, broke relationships with their parents, and all the parents could say, yeah, it was RSE, RSHE. It's because what they're taught in schools. No, it's not. Okay, there is a culture in society, social media, friendship circles. That is really the big push in society. thinking that there's this kind of evil plot in schools through relationship, sex, and health education to corrupt all the children. This is putting too much emphasis and giving too much assuming too much influence that the teachers have. Yeah, of course some have agendas, then they try and promote those agendas, and when they go too far, parents have to step in, absolutely. Yeah, but you need to understand that the influences children are facing are far more pervasive in society. Social media, friends, culture, advertising, marketing, these are the things that are driving. If you've got a concern in this area, again, you would take it through the pastoral route, form tutor, head of year. And if you couldn't really get any traction, then you would speak to the senior management as well. Okay. Smartphones, yeah, the big thing, smartphones. Okay. I've been speaking now for a good period of time. For all I know, I could be alone here. There's mashallah loads of people. Okay, let's take a quick poll, either shout out or use the chat facility. What do you think of smartphones? Should secondary school children have smartphones? Yes or no? No. No.
And also, Ustaz Sahal, we've unmuted or allowed people to unmute themselves. So if anybody's got any burning thought on this, they can just raise their virtual hand and we'll allow them to speak. Although through the chat, it's a pretty
Not much, is it?
conclusive. Either they don't really like you, Sahal, and they're talking about you, or they're talking about the smartphone.
Okay. That's a bit harsh. All right. Okay. Not with data. Brick phone, yes.
Yes,
Only us wants a brick phone.
the
Then you can
Nokia.
whack them over the head when they don't do what they're told anyway with the brick. Okay. Okay. So absolute consensus there. Does anybody disagree with this? Don't be afraid. There's like nobody's gonna kick you off the call. Does anybody disagree?
So there is a concern for parents who have children who travel, right? And they
Yeah.
need to get in contact or track them. They want to make sure like so you do need some sort of maybe some sort of data and
Mm.
smartphone to be able to just make sure they're safe and things like that. So how do you
Okay.
navigate that space?
Okay. So Shazia says not in school, but unfortunately when they are traveling to and from school on their own, what can one do? Only for emergencies, those with no data and any socials. Tracker will do the job. Okay. Right. First thing to note is that us even having this conversation is like closing the stable door once the horse is already bolted. Okay, I believe that's the saying. Closing the stable door once the horse is already bolted. Um, in reality, we're just spectators in this field. Society has already moved entirely down that way. Okay, with all of its problems, with all of its temptations, with everything that comes with it, society's already gone that way. The social media founders, many of them were behavioral scientists. They understood how to hook people, the kind of endorphin fix that young people get when they get likes or shares and tweets and this kind of thing. And so, reality is there's very little we can do. Whether you give them a smartphone or not, they will crave a smartphone. Okay, and if you don't give them one, the likelihood is they will manage somehow to access one. Okay. So we need to be thinking more in terms of safeguards rather than this kind of polarized debate about whether we should give it or not. In reality, in an ideal world, absolutely no. Okay. It's been absolutely proven through research that the teenage brain is the worst possible brain that you could give a smartphone to. You are literally opening up the whole world to a mind which is still developing, which has not developed a sense of risk and is highly impressionable. Okay, so uh, in theory, answer should be no. But reality is they will want to access it. They will want to, if you don't give it, they will try and get it somehow from somewhere. And oftentimes they might actually, yeah, you might be shocked by this, that they might actually be using your phone as a parent, yeah, to do all sorts. So there are various clothing apps, not clothing apps literally like clothing, but there are various apps which cloaking apps, sorry, which disguise and create alternative profiles. So some parents have said, "I'm not going to give my child a smartphone, but they can use mine when they need because I can then monitor it." So what they'll often do is create a different profile, hidden apps, and they're getting up to all sorts on their parents' phone. Can you believe that? Okay, so in reality, we just have to face that reality that we're going to have to put in safeguards and measures. So one of them could be some kind of negotiated time when they will get a smartphone. It could be perhaps towards the end of secondary school or after secondary school or year 11 in secondary school or year 12. I'm not here to give an absolute age, but right from year 7 seems too extreme. Okay, that seems really extreme. So have some kind of negotiated agreement. Don't kind of create the environment where they're going behind your back and using it. Just come to some kind of agreement from day one that okay, I am going to give you a smartphone, but at this point, or I am going to give you a phone, but it won't be a smartphone. It'll be a brick phone. Or I'm going to give you a brick phone for these ages and then a smartphone for when you reach this age. Just be open and transparent with them. Okay. With the proviso that the smartphone I give you, I want full access to it. Okay. So it's not a question of spying on you, but anything that you do, I need to be able to have access to it. I say that in theory, they're so far ahead of us in technology, they'll be easily able to cloak what they're doing, but at least have that agreement so you're not under that kind of I'm spying on my children type of zone. Okay. So have a negotiated agreement and have some kind of safeguards in place. So it could be that we agree a digital sunset. Okay, by this time, all smartphones will be off, including my own. Yeah. Um, the problem why children don't listen to us is because our actions speak louder than our words. Yeah. When you see mum and dad glued to that smartphone, then the messaging from the parents in terms of their non-verbal messaging is that this is really important for our happiness. So you can't really preach to your child anymore. You shouldn't have a smartphone. Yeah, okay, you're an adult, but if you want them to be disciplined and not use smartphones, you need periods in family time when you're not using your smartphone. So there needs to be a digital sunset. Could be 9 p.m., whatever, 10 p.m., where we say, okay, no more smartphones. Okay, and I'm putting mine away. Or at least before you go to sleep, and this I really will insist on, that children give their smartphones in. I often see incidents happening online between children at silly times in the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Why do they have access to a smartphone at that time? Why have the parents not taken them in? So if you're going to give it, have a digital sunset, and at the very least, make sure that everyone's phone is taken at night time before people go to sleep. And that includes your own phone being kind of put away, locked away, or put away somewhere else. Okay. Now, the issue of safety, it's a little bit over-egged. Okay. Okay, they need a smartphone so they can contact me, on the way to school, coming back. A child walking around in public with a smartphone on the way to school or after school is far more likely to make themselves the target of theft or mugging. Okay. It's absolutely not the smart thing to do, if you pardon the pun, for a child in the morning or in the afternoon to be walking in public with a phone. Okay. How do they contact you? There's usually plenty of adults around. Most children go to school very close to their homes. They should be more than capable of easily getting home, using public transport or walking. I don't really see why they would really desperately need to contact you on the way to school or on the way back from school. Obviously, in emergencies, that's what you're thinking about. Emergencies, something drastic happens. Um, for vast majority, nothing drastic will happen on the way to school or back from school. And if something does happen, which is terrible, it's usually because the child's got the smartphone out, either when crossing the road or in terms of kind of crime, being mugged, theft, phones being snatched off the streets. So it doesn't actually make them safer. I know that's a hard message, but most children, they can easily access adults and responsible adults if something happens and they need to contact parents. Also, after school, school receptions are usually open for a while. You can easily go to reception as a child and say, look, can you contact my parents, tell them they need to collect me, I'm not feeling well, etc., etc. Okay. Now you can put location settings on smartphones, so you can always see where they are. But so what? Let's see. So what? You can see where they are. Okay, you can see if they run away, right? But you know, if a child was going to run away or go somewhere they shouldn't, they're clearly going to switch their location settings off. Then you're down the road of okay, um, I don't know. It just doesn't get you very far. So I'm not here to give you definitive answers, but I'm just here to say that we need to try and think outside the box and think realistically about what's possible with smartphones, what restrictions we can put in place, where we lead by example, and what actually makes them safer and doesn't make them safer. Um, so it's a very difficult issue. It's a very complex issue. But I would not be exaggerating if I said up to 90% of issues in schools, they originate now on social media. Okay. So giving your child that smartphone is simply opening them up to a world of untold misery, really. And but I'm a pragmatist, and I understand that if you don't give it to them, somebody else will give it to them. Okay, and that could be far more dangerous. So we need to put some. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. There are some things you can do, but I promise you, whatever you want to do in terms of safeguards, there's several steps ahead of you in terms of technology. So I think really the most effective thing is just to have an open conversation, an honest conversation with them, and just talk about your expectations and just talk about your expectations and have an element of taghaful. Taghaful is selectively ignoring. Yeah, selectively ignoring. They're not gonna follow every single thing that you put in place. But the skill of a parent and a teacher is uh, to kind of give them the idea that you have a lot more power than you actually have. If you pick them up on every single transgression, then they're quickly going to realize there's not a lot this person can do to me. Yeah, they can shout at me. Okay, fine. They can switch the Wi-Fi off. Okay, fine. What else? So part of the skill of a parent is to make your child think there's a lot more than you can do compared to what you can actually do. So hopefully in the Q&A, maybe we'll have a few more things that we can explore around that. School uniform and equipment, do check the equipment list, do make sure you buy it. There has been a strong move towards cutting down the costs of school uniforms. Some schools were pricing uniforms ridiculously, just getting carried away with types of blazers and, really getting into the image of the school. And parents were racking up bills of hundreds, if not thousands. So there's been a move to making uniforms more kind of cheaper, more affordable, and where you feel that the school is going too far with its pricing, and schools rarely make money from it. It's usually the uniform suppliers who make money. Don't be afraid to go to the school and say, look, this is unreasonable. When you add up the PE list plus the school uniforms coming to several £100s, I've got this many kids. It's simply not affordable. Okay, so don't be afraid to raise your voice in that way. Okay, so there is a lot of information there. I will share it. I think I'm going to stop here for Q&A because we have spoken. I have spoken for a lot, and I'm conscious I haven't taken questions and answers. So I'm going to open the floor now for questions and answers. Ustad Akhtar, is that okay?
Yeah, excellent. Jazakallah khair. Really useful session, Ustad Sahab. Very informative, very practical and
Mm.
relevant stuff there. So Jazakallah khair. Brothers and sisters, we have a few minutes to open it up to question and answers. You've got a couple of options. You can just raise your virtual hand. I'll have you come off mute and you can ask your question. And
Okay.
uh, or you could do what Baba's done, which is to type a question in the chat box.
Yeah.
You can try and answer that. So there's the question on your screen.
Yeah.
Prayer at schools, who do we go to?
Yeah. So let's kick off with that because that was actually on the list. But Bob was very, very,
It's
very
probably the
particular
most
about this.
important one.
Yeah. 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 So Salah in school can be a real challenge from many perspectives. Okay. First perspective is the Salah timing. School timetables tend to be very rigid, and uh, sometimes the lunchtime simply doesn't even fall into the prayer time. So there needs to be this is what I meant about a positive relation built with the school, because when it comes to Salah, it can genuinely be very difficult to organize that. So you need a positive relationship with the school, and you need the school to be able to put facilities in place which are staffed. Okay, so this would come under a pastoral issue, and the first port of call would be the head of year. Now, it's quite likely the head of year is not going to be able to solve this problem themselves, and that's going to have to be escalated to the leadership team or the senior management, because it will involve putting staffing in place. It will be involve putting lunchtime supervisors. It will involve dedicating a room to for prayer facilities, and it requires parents to act. It requires first of all parents to also speak to their children, because half the time the children don't actually want to pray. Yeah, so they say, look, the school doesn't provide any facilities. I remember at one point, in our school we had one, two, three, around six prayer rooms in one school. Yeah, where I was, and children were complaining to parents, we haven't got any prayer facilities. There's six prayer rooms. And simple reality is they were busy, they're enjoying themselves, they're going for lunch, they're playing. They don't want to stop and pray. So it starts with you developing those routines at home of Salah and the importance of Salah. Then, if there are no prayer facilities in place, then the first person you speak to is the head of year. And if you don't get anywhere with that, it will be the senior management. Now, I would approach it from the point of view that this is very important for the identity of my child. This is very important for the well-being of my child. I would not approach it from the point of view that, yeah, there's in Islam, it tells us to do this, and all Muslims have to do this. Because the simple solution to that is for someone to say, yeah, well, we have 8 teachers who are Muslim and they don't pray in school, and we have 100 parents who are not saying the same thing. So you should not be interested at all in what other parents are doing, what other Muslim teachers are doing. It's none of your business, none of your concern. I'm a parent. This is my child. This is what they need to be a happy and successful child in school. It requires a short space of time, 5 to 10 minutes. It requires a simple space, doesn't even require a dedicated space. A classroom or a hall is sufficient, and it requires somewhere for them to make wudu. The normal toilets are more than sufficient, and it requires some level of supervision from the school. The reason I'm going to emphasize supervision is that cynically, what some schools in the past have done, I don't mean they are cynical, I'm saying a cynical person could say, is they've set up prayer facilities without any supervision. So what do you think the boys do after they pray Salah? It's wrestling time. It's fighting time. It's using smartphone time. It's trashing the place time. It's just natural boyish behavior, or even, you could say, girls also do the same thing. It's usually boys, to be honest. So then the school can quickly say, right, we're canceling the prayer facilities because boys have trashed the room. Yeah, because you didn't put any supervision in place. Yeah. So really focus on that point as well. You need prayer facilities and you need it supervised. Okay. I hope that gets me. Okay. Another uniform questions. So now, many schools have a version of the school uniform which is compliant with the Muslim faith. So they'll have a jilbab as part of the uniform, hijab as part of the school uniform. What schools don't want is inconsistency, where children are coming in with their own versions of hijabs and jilbabs, and it becomes a fashion thing. So many schools have Muslim versions of the school uniform. For example, Khalsa, which is a Sikh uniform supplier, produces Muslim friendly uniforms, surprising enough, a Sikh supplier, and many others do as well. So you can work with the school again with that. You would go through the pastoral route, speak to the head of year, and if you don't get anywhere, speak to the senior management. Definitely, this will be an issue that the senior management will have to get involved with. And again, it's not about we as Muslims, it's about me, my concerns, my child, my needs. And then when you have many parents doing that, that will create a change within the school. If you don't get anywhere with the senior management, you also have the governing board. And this is why I said it's important for Muslims to be involved in the governing board. At governing board level, there are Muslims who can give that perspective and emphasize why this is important. Jazakallah khair. Any other questions, comments?
Very good. Jazakallah khair. Anything else, brothers and sisters? You can type it in the chat or you can raise your virtual hand.
I tell Charles experience a culture shock. I was having a conversation with my daughter. She said, boys don't lower their gaze. Nobody's going to be lowering their gaze in a school, so that's worth remembering. Let's just be realistic about that. Sorry, the part I couldn't see the whole question there. Would you mind just reading the question again?
Yeah, how to help a child who's experiencing a culture shock. I was having a conversation with my daughter. She said the boys there don't lower their gaze, they'll stare at you.
Um, okay. Oh, sorry, my video went off. They'll stare at you. Okay. So what? I mean, what can you do? You know, you can't. Unlikely to be honest. Unless the girl's just stunningly attractive. Okay, then it's a bit unlikely. It's possible. Um, really, schools are very, very busy places. Everyone's getting on with their thing, and everyone finds their own peer group of people with similar interests. It's very important, and I didn't mention this, young people have a positive peer group, okay? Others like them with similar interests who will remind them to pray. People rarely go to pray alone, they go in groups, yeah? So as a parent, you just to make it practical, you can help try and negotiate the friendship groups. So being very open about your child's friends coming to their house. Yeah, come to our house. Yeah, have some snacks. Yeah, I'll take you bowling. I'll take you football. I'll take you down to escape room with your friends. Yeah, yeah, have a good. Try and keep an eye on who the friendship group is and try and manage it to make sure they have positive influences around them. That will be the best way for them to negotiate the cultural change because they'll have a group of friends with similar shared values. If someone's looking at you, making you feel uncomfortable, then the first port call will be the form tutor. If you don't get anywhere, the head teacher, and if you don't get anywhere, the senior management team. Any other maybe verbal comments, questions?
Question in the chat around advice for primary school children. A bit outside of the remit of this particular call. Any quick tips for parents who have had their kids just join primary school and start schooling for the first time?
Please can you make any comments? I'm just reading the question. For nursery and early primary school children, I know this is early. Yeah, let them enjoy school. Yeah, let them enjoy school. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it, that English children are the most tested children in the world. Let them enjoy. Let them learn through play. Please just don't think of 11 plus tuition straight away. Yeah, I know the competition to get into grammar schools is incredible, but just let them enjoy growing up and enjoy learning through play in the early years, especially. I'm not a primary expert, and I think others like Baba on the call and others, would be able to give more guidance on that. But let's get that enjoyment factor.
Oh,
Um, oops.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
back.
Okay. Yeah. There were some other questions. Rather than trying to listen online again, I would really we're going to provide the full guide, and you can read that. Primary children, talk to them. Yeah, good advice from Baba. Please let us know how enrolled for weekdays, weekend Arabic class. Oh, I think that Akhtar, this is a question related to the Al-Noor Quran Academy. If we can address that at the end, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Specifically LGBT agenda or material, please expand on syllabus or curriculum. Okay, every school will kind of approach it in a slightly different way. And I think the most important thing is to go into school and have an honest conversation so you understand how the school is approaching it. There are 9 protected characteristics as part of the Equalities Act 2010, not just sexuality, but religion, race, gender, disability. There's actually 9 protected characteristics, and all of them has to be respected in school and taught, not just one. Yeah, not just sexuality. So you should be able to ask to see the resources, and you should be able to input and give feedback and advice on those resources. And these resources should not be kind of evangelical in nature, preaching one way of thinking. Now, the government is doing a review in this area, especially gender issues, and it's going to be publishing that report very soon, I believe October, November time, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And there'll be some more guidance for parents in this area. But for more kind of specialized advice and training, the Muslim Family Initiative is an organization set up, and they do regular training sessions across the country. So, I'd highly recommend that for you as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your child being taught that discrimination based on sexuality is against the law in this country. They need to know what the law in this country is. But that's very different to taking a value-based approach on this subject and having someone preach at you that your religion is wrong, your culture is wrong. That's a completely different kettle of fish than somebody actually giving you information about the society we live in and what the law says. Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Next question.
Possibly the final question for today, as we're looking at the time, from Naz: how can you encourage children to independently follow a routine when they keep needing reminding, even when you've written it down and they've have been following for months?
Yeah. That persistence from you as a parent is working. Trust me, it's working. The fact you're reminding them, the fact that you're on their case, without you realizing, they will start to internalize some of those messages. And going from zero independence to full autonomy, it's a process. Yeah, it can't happen overnight, and it can't happen just in one go. But try and develop this autonomy throughout their personal life, through their self-care, hygiene, cleaning their room, going to the masjid. One of the most lovely sights is seeing young people go to the masjid and back themselves for salah, yeah, without their parents. Yeah, I'm wondering where are their parents, but the fact that they're getting into the habit, young boys going to the masjid, coming back themselves, it's really amazing. So try and develop that autonomy, not just in schoolwork. You can't just do it isolated in schoolwork. It has to be throughout. Yeah, even in terms of meals, can they develop the ability to make lunch for themselves? Take care of their own hygiene, clean their room. Just try and develop it throughout their life. Go to the masjid and back themselves. Try and develop it throughout their life, not just in isolation when it comes to schoolwork. With regards to sharing of the slides, yeah, the PDF document will be shared with all parents. And again, I would reiterate a big thanks to Zakumullah Khair and to Educare that produced this. And I'll kind of end where I started, which is we need to again make education something which is universal. This session is just as suitable, really, in many ways, to non-Muslim parents as Muslims, and we need to stop commercializing education, even if it means, Islamic schools, big fees, which they need. to survive. Of course, they need it, but that doesn't mean we don't support all parents with initiatives like the Parent Hub, because those who can't afford the Islamic schools or don't live in the right area, they also need help, and we need to make this message universal that education is about merit and it's not about money. Okay, I think we'll. Shall we stop there?
Yes, we should. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Ustad Sahal Abu Hanifa, for your input today. Really, really brilliant, as per usual, inshallah. And for you parents, thank you for joining. Look out for future Parent Hub sessions. We're going to look at some of the, more relevant issues that you and me as parents are dealing with, and that are not really spoken about very often, so we can bring some real contemporary knowledge to those sort of conversations and bring it to the forefront. So if you haven't, then join our mailing list, which you can do via our website. And inshallah, please do share the work that we're doing with others so we can have more people to benefit. Really appreciate all of your time today. Thank you all for joining. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.